What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about the resignation of UK Prime Minister Liz Truss. This is, we really do not hear a lot about UK politics in the United States, unless you can go out of your way, of course, to find out more about it. But I'm talking about the average article that pops up, the average news station reporting on UK politics. And this is finally something that kind of popped up on my phone. It popped up in articles on the internet. It actually reached me as an American. And when it reaches me, I feel like I'm a good measuring stick for, okay, this is a good indication that an average American is kind of getting this news. America really cares about this. And as far as Liz Truss goes, I don't really understand what it is that she did in her time in office. I don't understand much about the circumstances of her becoming prime minister. I know Boris Johnson was removed from that position, and they chose a new leader of the Conservative Party to take his place, and it was Liz Truss. And 44 days later, she's now resigning, and I just want to learn, I want to learn about, did people not approve of the way she was handling the position, not approve of her policies? Why? What's going on here? I actually need the entire story on this. I just have the very bare bones understanding of, okay, there was a new prime minister, now she's resigning, which I guess, was she going to be fired? Was she going to be impeached? And this is her saying, oh, no, you can't boot me out, I quit, kind of thing. There's been a funny, the sort of clickbait story in America right now is this really random, Liz Truss was in for 44 days in office, just enough time to technically reach the threshold of being eligible for $100,000 or more a year for the rest of her life, which is apparently some kind of stipend or pension or payment that you can get when you serve a minimum amount of days as the prime minister. And apparently she did that. And that's like, for some reason, that's what the American media chose to put in front of my face. And they were right. I thought that was kind of amusing. So maybe that says more about me. But anyway, I'm hoping this video here will kind of clarify a few things for me. We'll see.
Yesterday, after just 44 days in office, Liz Truss resigned, becoming by far and away the shortest prime minister in British political history. Yeah. Truss's resignation came after a day of complete chaos in the Commons, where some 30-odd Conservative MPs voted against the government in what was originally deemed a confidence vote. So
are we saying that actually a bunch of Conservative Party MPs voted against their confidence in Liz Truss? So her own party was basically saying, okay, I think it's time for you to go. It got to that point. What did she do? What happened? Well, that's kind of the thing. That's probably so obvious to someone living in the UK that I'm afraid this video may not even go over it, because that's kind of what the default you're supposed to know. But hopefully.
In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the events of the last few days.
Good.
How it culminated in Truss's resignation.
Okay.
And what happens next.
Okay. Good. I don't think this video is designed necessarily for an American or someone who knows almost nothing about this, but hopefully I can put the pieces together.
Now, Truss's tenure has been turbulent from the very start. So if you want a full timeline, then you should check out yesterday's video, which is linked down below.
Okay, well, I don't have time for that right now. So we'll see.
In today's video, though, we're going to be going chronologically, starting with the events of Wednesday. And Truss had a pretty busy start to her Wednesday. First, at PMQs, she claimed that the pensions triple lock would stay in place, directly contradicting what her new Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, had said just 24 hours later. Then she suspended a senior aide who was facing a Cabinet Office investigation for briefing against Sajid Javid.
Okay, so she was essentially creating policy that was going directly the opposite of what some of her other party members were saying, having to do with pensions, which is probably a touchy subject. And she suspended, Mr. Stein? What was the second one?
Facing a Cabinet Office investigation. Then she suspended a senior aide who was facing a Cabinet Office investigation for briefing against Sajid Javid. And then at about 4 p.m, she sacked Home Secretary Suella Braverman over a disagreement on immigration.
Oh, so she was suspending people and firing people for disagreeing on things? Is that accurate? That seems kind of bad. Was this is pretty extreme, you know? Hearing about this, literally the leader of an entire party, a political, body being sacked or quitting is a big deal. So I imagine there's quite a fascinating story behind this.
But this was just the beginning. Labour then scheduled a vote in the Commons, due for 7 p.m, which would have given them control over the order paper to schedule a vote outlawing fracking. For context, Truss is actually pro-fracking, but the vast majority of Conservative MPs don't like it, and a fracking ban was even in the 2019 manifesto. Accordingly, over the course of the afternoon, various Conservative MPs said that they wouldn't be voting with the government against Labour's motion, because, well, they don't like fracking, and they don't want their constituents thinking that they do like fracking.
So already the cracks are forming here. I don't have to know the absolute specifics, I think, to just get an idea of why Liz Truss was booted out. But obviously, she was having a lot of butting of heads with her own party.
To try and pressure these MPs into voting with the government, Truss said that this vote would amount to a confidence issue. Essentially, that means that if individual MPs didn't vote with the government, they'd get their whip removed, i.e. they'd no longer be Conservative MPs. However, if enough people ignored this and voted against the government, and then the government loses, they'd be determined not to have the confidence of Parliament, and a new government would have to be formed.
What? Oh my... This seems really, is this interpreted as her, like, threatening them? Like, you have to vote with us, or you're gonna cause chaos and an upheaval of the entire government, so you gotta vote the way I want you to vote, and we're gonna remove your whip. That seems like, she was really pressuring them to do that. Interesting.
For Truss, though, this threat didn't really work, and at least 2 Conservative MPs said that they'd vote against the government anyway, which would have been a bad look. Now, it's unclear exactly what happened next, but it looks like Truss decided that she didn't have the political power to sack these 2 MPs, so made a...
She would have sacked them just for not voting how she wanted them to vote? Can you do that? Just fire government officials for not voting how you want them to vote? Isn't that the point? To have, like, differing opinions? I guess within your own party, you're kind of hoping that your party members vote with you and that you all have the same ideology. But still, seems a little strange to me.
Desperate U-turn and said that it wouldn't be a confidence vote after all. And in the debate preceding the vote, Climate Secretary Graham Stewart, who was in the chamber representing the government, originally seemed to suggest that it wasn't actually a confidence vote, before refusing to clarify whether Conservative MPs who abstained would lose the whip.
I really do need to press him on this issue of a confidence vote, because many of us have been told today by our whips that if we vote or abstain from voting against this motion, we will lose the whip. So could he please confirm whether that is the case or not?
Thank the Honourable.
So, a confidence vote is not just a descriptive term. It's not just saying it's a vote that displays confidence. Is that a technical term This confidence vote thing is like a technical term that the MPs needed clarification on to make a decision.
Lady, for that question, and that is a matter for party managers, and I'm not a party manager.
As you can probably
I love the UK House of Commons. I've reacted to the UK House of Commons before. I love how they're all like loud and saying their opinion, and it's a little chaotic, but still gets the job done. So different from how it's done in the United States. Everything's like super formal, and although people are still screaming at each other, it's not nearly as entertaining as the House of Commons.
imagine this sparked some serious confusion among Conservative MPs and in the voting lobbies. There are even reports that Conservative whips physically manhandled MPs into division lobbies, and both the Chief Whip and Deputy Chief Whip allegedly resigned just before the vote, with the Deputy Whip allegedly shouting, "I'm f***ing furious and I don't give a f*** anymore."
Wow.
Point of order, Mr. Bryant.
Where is Liz Truss in all of this? Shouldn't she be here in this room? Saying something? Clarifying something? Like, what's going on?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I would urge you to launch an investigation into the scenes outside the entrance to the No Lobby earlier. As you know, members are expected to be able to vote without fear or favour.
Yes.
And the Behaviour Code, which is agreed by the whole of the House, says that there shall never be bullying or harassment of members.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. Literally going on outside the doors of the chambers, people are being pressured and bullied and screaming about how they're not going to put up with this anymore. Now it's starting to make sense, the scene being set here, for why the Prime Minister would kind of be forced to resign.
I saw members
If this is happening under her leadership.
being physically manhandled into another lobby and being bullied.
Wow.
If we want to stand up against bullying in this House of our staff, we have to stop bullying in this chamber as well, don't we?
There will be an investigation into this alleged conduct, and we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Wow.
But with the votes counted, over 30 Conservative MPs abstained from voting, not supporting the government in voting down the bill. This includes Boris Johnson, Theresa May, Kwasi Kwarteng, Priti Patel, and Ben Wallace, amounting to a serious issue for Truss.
Perfectly honest, this...
What do all the people of the UK think about all this, by the way? Did they like Liz Truss? Did just nobody like Liz Truss? How did she end up in that position anyway? I have a very narrow picture of what's going on, unfortunately. But this is really piquing my interest. I've just heard bits and pieces of this over the past month. And now, you know, just today or yesterday, Boris Johnson is running again, and I don't know what the people of the UK think about Boris Johnson. And if it's very interesting. Something I don't know a lot about, though.
This whole affair is inexcusable. It is a pitiful reflection on the Conservative Parliamentary Party at every level. This is an absolute disgrace. As a Tory MP of 17 years, I think it's a shambles and a disgrace. I really shouldn't say this, but I hope all those people that put Liz Truss in number 10, I hope it was worth it. I hope it was worth it for the ministerial red box. I hope it was worth it to sit round the cabinet table.
Oh boy.
Because the damage they have done to our party is extraordinary. I've had enough. I've had enough of talentless people putting their tick in the right box, not because it's in the national interest, but because it's in their own personal interest to achieve ministerial position. And I know.
Does that have something to do with how this happened? How Liz Truss became Prime Minister? Was it people trying to get ahead politically? Or did they genuinely think she was the best individual for the job? Because it's, again, I need more details, but it's starting to sound like a lot of people kind of knew this was destined for failure.
I speak for hundreds of backbenchers who right now are worrying for their constituents all the time, but now worrying about their own personal circumstances, because there is nothing as an ex-MP. And a lot of my colleagues are wondering, as many of their constituents are wondering, how they're going to pay their mortgages if this all comes to an end soon.
Then at 1:30 a.m, Number 10 sent out a WhatsApp message trying to clear up the issue, claiming that the vote was indeed a confidence issue, warning that anyone who abstained could expect proportionate disciplinary action. However, by Thursday morning, Truss had presumably realised that she didn't have the political power to kick out 30 MPs, including a couple of prime ministers, and apparently made yet another U-turn, with...
Wow. So many members of her party, or MPs at least, abstained? Well, so many of them abstained that you can't kick them all out. That's actually a pretty good tactic on their part, right? And so now she had to U-turn again, reel it back.
a couple of prime ministers, and apparently made yet another U-turn, with the Transport Secretary telling Sky News on Thursday morning that it wasn't actually a vote of confidence. Now, it was around this time yesterday morning that we recorded the latest episode of our podcast, Truss Issues. Now, the show is linked down below, so you can watch it on YouTube or listen through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favourite podcast app. Anyway, while we were recording, Conservative MPs, who were already pretty annoyed at Truss for crashing the economy and their poll ratings...
Okay, there you go. Here, to him, this is just a little tidbit, a little aside that he's noting. But to me, this is like, okay, some tangible things for why people are not happy with Truss's leadership. Crashing the economy. Is that chalked up to Truss? I thought that was kind of maybe a long-term, it's affecting the entire world at this point. Every economy is crashing. But maybe she was also enacting policies that weren't looking for a solution to that at any rate as it was happening. And just generally hurting the UK Conservative Party's image, I guess?
Already pretty annoyed at Truss for crashing the economy and their poll ratings, started sending letters of no confidence into the 1922 committee en masse. And by about midday, Sir Graham Brady, the leader of the 1922, went down to Downing Street to tell Truss to resign.
Oh.
Then at 1:30...
Oh, so they did kind of politely, quote unquote, go to her and be like, I think you want to resign, don't you, Liz? I think you do. And she was like, okay, I get it.
30 p.m, Truss gave a statement outside Downing Street, announcing her resignation and paving the way for yet another Conservative leadership election.
Look, this article here. Liz Truss's resignation leaves a party in tatters and a nation in despair. Is that true? Is that like an accurate overlook of this? There's so much stuff going on in the United States with our own politics that, this reminds me a lot of, in a way. Not specifically like this, but just that, people being blamed for stuff, a nation in despair, people being blamed. This headline is certainly something, not too dissimilar from something you'd see in the United States.
I came into office at a time of great economic and international instability. Families and businesses were worried about how to pay their bills. Putin's illegal war in Ukraine threatens the security of our whole continent, and our country has been held back for too long by low economic growth.
So she is stating all these problems that she kind of walked into at becoming prime minister. I'm guessing she basically did nothing that the people of the UK thought helped any of those problems, I'm guessing.
I was elected by the Conservative Party with a mandate to change this. We delivered on energy bills and on cutting national insurance.
Right, the UK energy thing. That's a whole thing as well that I'm vaguely aware of.
And we set out a vision for a low-tax, high-growth economy that would take advantage of the freedoms of Brexit. I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party.
Ooh.
I have therefore...
You know, she doesn't... I don't know Liz Truss. I'm not familiar with her or how she speaks. But she doesn't come across as too upset right now. It's very matter of fact. The words coming out of her mouth are very, saying basically she can't help the nation. She's failing at her mandate. But none of it sounds very apologetic or upset like you would expect. So that's a little weird.
On which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
Wow.
This morning I met the chairman of the 1922 committee, Sir Graham Brady. We've agreed that there will be a leadership election to be completed within the next week.
Wow.
This will ensure that we remain on a path to deliver our fiscal plans and maintain our country's economic stability and national security.
I mean, she's almost smiling at times during this speech. It's a little strange. Maybe it's just some kind of uncontrollable facial tics that she's not consciously aware of, but that's from someone who's really never seen Liz Truss speak or do anything. That's my first impression. Yeah, I don't know. Now that the party is going to hold an election for a new prime minister in the next week, is that true? That's very quick. Who gets to put their name forward? I've actually seen some funny memes on that. Funny people. Was it Ricky Gervais, maybe, who had a meme of like, this wouldn't even be the most surprising thing, and then it's him as prime minister or something like that. Anyway, who is up for election for this? Who gets to vote on this? This is such an important position. And is it just up to the Conservative Party, the majority party, to vote within themselves on the next prime minister? Does the population, the people of the UK have any say in it? Or is their say supposed to be, is the will of the people supposed to be represented through the majority party, I guess? I don't know. I'm trying to relate it a bit to how things are done in the United States, and I don't know if I'm succeeding or not, but this is interesting stuff.
I will remain as Prime Minister until a successor has been chosen. Thank you.
Yep, you heard that right. Another leadership election. And according to reports, this leadership election will include another vote of Conservative Party members, much like the last one.
Okay.
However, unlike the last leadership contest, which took a couple of months to wrap up, this one is due to conclude by October 28th, which is just a week's time. Now,
that is crazy. Isn't that crazy? To pick someone that quickly? Don't you want to take your time with something like this? Make sure you do a good job and not end up with another Liz Truss or something like the situation? Like, I don't know.
Now, while we're not exactly sure who'll be running yet, it's likely to be the usual culprits. Rishi Sunak is almost certain to give it a go, considering that he came second in the last election. And Boris Johnson might even throw his hat in the ring, considering that he's the one who won the last election. He could even realistically make an argument that Tory MPs have regretted getting rid of him. Regardless, while we don't know exactly who will be running to be the next Prime Minister, we do know that this whole situation isn't going to go down particularly well with the public. That's because the general public overwhelmingly want an election, and a majority want a Labour government.
Oh, this is good stuff. This is what I want to know. I want to know what the people of the UK think about all this. That's the part that was missing from all this for me. They really want the Labour Party to be in control of the government, and that would be like, so it would be like a Labour Party Prime Minister. And if it's a Conservative Party Prime Minister election, the people want an election, not some kind of vote within the party. Am I vaguely correct on that? Let me listen to this a little bit.
Overwhelmingly want and isn't going to go down particularly well with the public. That's because the general public overwhelmingly want an election, and a majority want a Labour government. And this new Prime Minister would likely be 2 Prime Ministers removed from the last one who actually won an election, seriously damaging this new Prime Minister's credibility and mandate.
Yeah. This will be a lot. It'll be so many new Prime Ministers, for one thing. Since they voted for, the people got to vote for one. These are just people being put into that position by the government, essentially. Wow, okay.
They'd also have to figure out exactly how to rebuild confidence within the party and in the wider public, which would be no small task. But before we worry about all that, we need to get through the next week. We need to find out.
Hold on, look at this little chart here. This has a lot of stuff about the controversies, I'm guessing. Labor gains in local elections. Sugre report released. Starmer investigated by police. Labour plan to freeze energy prices. Liz Truss becomes PM. Promises tax cuts. Energy bills freeze. Chancellor's mini budget. Jeremy Hunt replaces Warteg as Chancellor. Wow. A lot of stuff. I don't understand a lot of it, but a lot of stuff going on. Okay.
But before we worry about all that, we need to get through the next week. We need to find out how the Tories think they're going to get a leadership contest managed and organised this quickly. And then we need to figure out who the new Prime Minister is going to be.
Wow.
Ultimately, though, Truss's speech revealed that she just couldn't really handle making big decisions at such a complex time, both politically and economically. And it would have been great if she just brushed up with Brilliant, the STEM learning platform where you can learn everything.
Oh, I was like, really? Who's Brilliant? Some kind of crazy mind hive that she can access? No, it's some kind of sponsor for their channel. Okay, I'll probably end it there then. That was kind of a funny sponsorship segue. This was by TLDR News. I gotta give this a like. Oh, I gotta look at comments here. What are people saying? We really do need a general election now. All previous elections were about Brexit. Now we need the first proper post-Brexit election. She spent longer campaigning for her position than she did actually holding the position. Wow. Oh, man. The most amazing thing about Liz Truss is that people thought her run was over when she got the Queen funeral event, which costed her 10 days. Can you imagine if she hadn't had that event? She would have gotten it done in less than 5 weeks. Or 35 days. She set the highest bar for PM speedrunner to date. Okay. Yes, she did a speed run for how fast you can be prime minister and then quit. Oh, man. Oh, speed run. She's going to make a great trivia question in 10 years. Oh, man. Shortest prime minister, I'm guessing, would be the trivia question. Okay. Wow. Yeah, mostly people cracking jokes down here in the comments. Which is good. You gotta have a little bit of a sense of humor about this stuff, because it is so serious. Might drive you crazy if you don't. Okay. Well, I do feel like I have a better understanding of a lot of this. I certainly understand what happened and what's happening as far as voting for the new prime minister within the Conservative Party, and a little bit about the sentiment of the people of the UK, which is nice. But yeah, this news to Americans is confusing. We don't have a lot of context because we don't know much about specifically what the UK thinks of its prime ministers, what the prime ministers do. We're too wrapped up in politics over here. But I found this very interesting, and this is being talked about a little bit in the United States, which is interesting to me, of course. When news from the UK does reach it all the way over here, I do always find it fascinating. And it usually means that it's pretty darn important. So, This was very good, very good. This helped. This helped me understand a bit more. But there's a lot more I need to look into to understand all this. But this was okay. This was a good start. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK, culture in the UK, stuff, news, things going on in the UK, from an American's perspective, then feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.